planning organization.
This is hard.
Trying to get all that out.
You're running for mayor.
My name's Rick Fernandez. It's my privilege to serve as chair of the committee. Thank you all for coming. We've got a gallery today. I don't know if anybody's here for public comment, but certainly have us out. It's our normal course to go around the room from my left, around the room, have everyone identify themselves and their appointing authority. And in the process, we will be counting heads for purposes of establishing quorum. So I'll start off again, Rick Fernandez, chair of the committee, and I am member at large Hispanic.
Dana Lazarus, vice chair, appointed by Tampa City Councilwoman Lynn Hurtak.
Stephen Hollenkamp with the City of Plant City.
Good evening, everybody. Joseph Citro, appointed by Commissioner Harry Cohen.
Jamie Jones at large, representing West Tampa.
Matt Sink, appointed by Councilmember Alan Clendenin.
Ed Majewski, appointed by the Expressway Authority.
Carson Bush, member at large.
Stephen Gainier, member at large.
Ibia Adams, member at large.
Stephen Jones, member at large, South County. Chris Gonzalez, member at large.
Susie Watts, appointed by Commissioner Miller.
And Sarah Caper to my right. I count 13 heads. Yep, we needed 7, so thank you all. And online, who do we have? Anyone?
Online, I see Cliff is online.
Cliff Reese, you there? No one's acknowledging online?
They look like they're all muted.
Okay,
Artie Fryer just joined as well. So we have Cliff and Artie online.
okay, very good. All right, so declaration of quorum.
Chris Fowler just walked in.
For the record, Chris Velick has joined us. Chris, your appointing authority?
At large.
All right, that takes us to public comment. Anyone in the room for Peace League? Anybody jumping up? Okay, online, anybody?
Anyone online, public comment? I see none.
All right, takes us to the chair's report. Let's see. All right. Generally, what I do here is simply read what Sarah has typed out for me, which is what I'm going to do with one small change. This is, for those of you who are new, is simply to report on what the TPO board has done on issues that we have litigated here. If we've recommended approval on a particular item, what did the TPO board do with that recommendation? All right, bullet point number 1, the CAC voted to recommend that the TPO board accept the FY 28 through 32 priority list as amended. The amendment, you may recall, was to remove item rank 36 from the priority list. That was I-275 Hillsborough Avenue to Beers Avenue, the widening capacity project. I think the vote was 9-4 or 9-5, as I recall. The TPO board accepted the priority list, but without the amendment. They did not accept the amendment that we offered. And let me just offer a little bit of meat on those bones. Our action was presented. I gave the CAC report as the chair, and our motion and our action was picked up by Commissioner Cohen. Commissioner Cohen made the motion to approve the priority list with the exception of the widening from Hillsborough to Beers. That motion was seconded by Commissioner Gwen Myers. There was discussion. There was a vote taken. The vote was 2-4 and everyone else against. So the motion failed. When the entire TIP priority list came back for action or for vote by the board, the vote there was 1 against, that was Gwen Myers, and everyone else in favor of the TIP priority list as we litigated it and as they saw it that day. Any questions on that? Did I manage to confuse the heck out of you? Got that? All right. CAC voted to recommend that the TPO board accept the Henderson Boulevard, Manhattan Avenue Vision Plan. That was accepted by the TPO board. In April, the CAC voted to recommend that the TPO board approve the FY 27 through 28 Unified Planning Work Program. That was presented as an action item to the board in May, and they also approved it. Let's see, member changes. We have a new member, Abraham Wilcox. And he's not here, but he can vote. Okay, well, so it goes. There was a member resignation, Kelly Loya, who I don't remember ever having met. Okay, so she's left us, appointed in March, never attended and resigned due to personal reasons. Okay, that's it. That's all I got by way of chair's report. Any question on any of that? No? All right. Our first action item is approval of the minutes. We've got two packages today. One for the May 6, 2026 meeting, the regular monthly meeting of the committee. Have you had an opportunity to review? Hopefully. If so, is there a motion to approve? Susie Watts offers the motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Chris Vella offers a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? See no hands up. Any discussion online?
Anyone online?
All right, by acclamation then, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, unanimous approval. Thank you. And the workshop. The next package was the voluntary hybrid workshop that was offered on May the 20th, 2026. This was a non-command performance activity to help prepare folks for this meeting. Tip, we did have good attendance. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to review. Is there a motion to approve? Susie Watts offers the motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
And, Joe Citro offers a second. Is there any discussion? See no discussion in the room. Is there any discussion online?
Anyone online? I see none.
All right, by acclamation then, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. All right, please note for the record, unanimous approval. I'll wait for you to get settled.
I'm sorry, I'm slow because I didn't want to disrupt.
And if you would, identify yourself and your appointing authority.
Yes, Yassine, Temple Terrace, appointed by the city of Temple Terrace.
Thanks, welcome. Let's see, the approval of the minutes, and now that takes us to action items. First action item up is 7 Alpha, fiscal year 27 through 31, TIP program review by Elizabeth Watkins. Hi, Elizabeth.
Good evening, CAC. Elizabeth Watkins, TPO staff. This will be the third time that you've heard this iteration of this presentation, so I'm really going to keep it to the high point so that we can get to the most important part, which are your comments, questions, discussion, and ultimately action today. So you'll recall that the TIP is essentially a program or a list of all federally funded or regionally significant projects that are anticipated to advance at some stage over the next 5 years. So 2027 through fiscal year 2031. We do this because we're required by both federal and state law to do so. And the intention behind it, again, is to just give visibility to these projects. There are many things that are required for adoption. We do extensive public engagement, put out yard signs, send individual postcards to property owners that are within a half-mile radius of an upcoming construction project. We work very closely with both HART and FDOT as designated recipients of transit and highway funds. We ensure that all the projects within the TIP are consistent with our long-range transportation plan. And the one major thing that this really separates itself from the list of priority projects is it's not a wish list. These are the projects that have funding programmed to them and again are expected to advance at some point. over the next 5 years. So just looking at this program of projects, its totals about 179 projects totaling about $2.5 billion across all modes. This is a very stable work program. It's similar to what we've received in past years. And the lion's share of the funds are what we consider highway, but those highway funds don't mean that they're spent on just the interstate. There's bike ped projects, safety projects, resurfacings, many, many things under that category. But there are also funds set aside directly for transit, the port, and the airport. When you break out those 180 or so projects, you'll see in this bar chart that the vast majority of the projects in the TIP are those that are maintaining the assets that we have today. So there are many resurfacing projects. There are projects in there for HART to maintain their fleet, their bus stops, those sorts of things, maintaining bridges. There are also other projects in there that are more narrowly tailored to our LRT categories. But again, you can see the real story here is we take care of what we have first. So when you look at the TIP at all fund categories, so that $2.5 billion of all federal funds, you'll see about 46% are programmed to those major projects, which we at the TPO define as interstate widenings, interchanges, and fixed skyway transit. And we're not surprised by this because those projects often have the highest price tag. For example, the I-4 express lanes, that's $500 million. That's, a significant portion of this TIP. But as you'll recall from the list of priority projects, the TPO does have programming input on a certain pot of federal funds. And that totals about $90 million across the 5 years. And the way that we have our project prioritization process set up is it's divided a little bit more evenly across the projects. But to be fair, there are less of them, of course, than the entire 180. There's probably only about 10 projects within this category. So I won't go into all 180 projects, but again, just some major projects that you should be aware of is the continued advancement of the West Shore interchange. That is a large undertaking to reconfigure the interchange, add a trail, do punch throughs in the West Shore area. So this will be a very transformative project once it's complete sometime in the 2030s. Our partners at the Turnpike Enterprise are continuing to advance their Suncoast Parkway widening, specifically the segment from Van Dyke to Lutz Lake Fern in the northern portion of the county, expected to advance to construction in the later years of the TIP. Additionally, the I-4 express lanes, so from I-75 to Polk Parkway, which will add 2 lanes, 1 in each direction of express lanes, that's expected to go to construction in 2028. As we discussed previously at the workshop and the initial TIP presentation, there are some projects set aside to around the existing Hillsborough College Dale Mabry campus area to support the potential redevelopment of that site for the raise. The details are still evolving, but the 2 elements that DOT knows that they will be advancing are a capacity project, so adding lanes at this small segment of Air Cargo Road and Tampa Bay Boulevard, and then a signal at Dale Mabry and Steinbrenner, which is about here. I thought you might be interested in the projects that are going to start to construction in the next year. So just a quick highlight of those in each of the jurisdictions. So within the city of Tampa, near Busch Gardens, the city is advancing some intersection improvements at Annie Street and 30th Street. Adamo Drive at 34th Street is going to have a rigid pavement reconstruction. So instead of just doing asphalt, they'll put in concrete. It has longer useful life, less resurfacing required. Hillsborough Avenue will get an upgrade in the repaving in central Tampa near Seminole Heights from Park Road to Central Avenue. And then near the University of Tampa, Kennedy Boulevard at Plant Avenue have a traffic ops improvement. Then looking out to unincorporated county, lots of repavings going out on the eastern side. So MLK from Oak Brook Lane to Gallagher Road will have a fresh coat of asphalt, as well as US 92 from Eureka Springs to Winona Sassa. DOT is still advancing the I-4 westbound auxiliary lane from Bethlehem Road to French Fork Road to improve traffic flow and egress and ingress onto I-4 in that segment, as well as some intersection improvements and sidewalk upgrades at the intersection of US 301 and State Route 60, Brandon. A couple other projects going to construction in unincorporated county. The Hillsborough County is going to be implementing a signal at Mango Road at Old Hillsborough Avenue. And near the Moffett Center in South County, State Route 674 and College Avenue, there will be some continued intersection improvements for that important destination. Then looking out to our friends out east in Plant City, their two middle schools will have some sidewalks installed next year. I know of interest to the committee is the I-270 widening from Hillsborough to Pierce. So as we talked about in the workshop, this project technically is in the TIP, but when you look at it closely, there is nothing programmed from fiscal year 27 to 31. Secretary Hall and DOT has been consistent in saying that this project is expected to advance to design in 10 years or more. So not only have they said that, but it's also documented in their essentially their version of a long-range plan and their strategic intermodal system, which outlines here projecting design sometime between fiscal year 2035 and 2040, and then eventually potentially going to construction between fiscal year 2046 and 2050. So we're at the home stretch of the TIP. Looking forward to hearing your reactions, your questions, but we'll go to the board at the TIP hearing next Wednesday. So happy to take any questions and hear your discussion, but the recommended action before you today is to consider recommending that the TPO board approve the TIP.
Okay, so questions and comments time. Dana?
My first question is, so Justin Hall said that the design will go, it is the next phase, and it's not underway currently for 275 from Hillsborough to Pierce. That doesn't follow with what I heard last year after 2 years ago, 2024, after the project was scheduled for funding for design. I am so confused. Why did they start design or not? Because they had a consultant on retainer from years ago when they were going to do design. And then they told me that once Josh Wastel put the, made the motion and the TPO board voted that they put money, they immediately moved forward with design and brought that consultant back on board. So have they moved forward with design or not?
So I'll give my understanding of the DOT if you have things to add. You can see on the TIP page, there was about $52,000 spent on preliminary engineering. My understanding of the amount to actually do the design is closer to 20 million. So maybe an early stage of design has started, but it's entered preliminary engineering, but the real work of design is expected to start in a decade, if that's fair.
Suzanne Ziegler, FDOT. Elizabeth's correct, and you are correct as well. So I think it's also a terminology situation. So when you look at this, you don't know that it's going to be maybe a design bid build project in which we're designing and then building. And so I think too, there's been preliminary engineering, so we've crossed that threshold, but we haven't begun the design bid process because we do not have that funding right now.
Can we see what's been designed already with that 50,000, whatever the preliminary design paid for?
I would have to ask.
Okay. That'd be cool. Thank you.
I have a question on that. You made the specific statement that preliminary engineering has begun. Do you have a date for that?
Do I have a date?
Yeah, do you know the date that preliminary engineering is alleged to have begun?
I don't have a date. I have a date that the LDCA, the PD&E was approved, in which we entered into the preliminary engineering phase. But I don't have a specific date as to like we started designing this on a specific date.
Okay. Other questions here on the left? Jamie?
Thank you, Chair. So mine have to do with the Hillsborough College improvements, and unfortunately, I had to miss the workshop, so I'm sorry if this was covered then. The first question uh, are these improvements all from funds that have been added to the TIP budget in the last 6 months or so?
Yes, they've been added. No projects were shifted due to these being.
Thank you. And then second question, looking at the extents, they stop at Dale Mabry as if people don't go all the way to Armenia or any, cross or Dale Mabry to then get where they need to go after a game or before a game, whatever. Clearly, MLK, Hillsborough, and Tampa Bay Boulevard, even Columbus, they're all parking lots during major events. Why are the extents of this what they are, and was there a study completed for what the extent really should be for this project?
We don't have that information.
This is just being thrown at. Sorry, I was bleeding. Understood.
FDOT's back.
Just gonna park right here. Suzanne Ziegler, FDOT. So we don't have a lot of information on these. They are tied to the Hillsborough College campus. I do recognize your concerns because they do extend further out. We are waiting for more information in regards to these projects. So as soon as we have that, we're happy to supply Elizabeth with those and go into a little bit more detail as to where all of this is leading to. I think they're trying to set up the area so that there could be transit and operation and safety improvements in that specific area and then maybe work outwards. I'm not 100% sure, but we can definitely check on that and get something back to you guys.
Thank you. Chair, is it appropriate for us to amend our, approval of the TIP with some comment about specifically these 6 projects that, more information should be provided before a final vote is completed by the TPO board or something like that?
When we're done with our questions, comments and the like, I'll be calling for motions. The motion may be to approve as presented. The motion may be to strike an item. The motion may be to make a recommendation to the board regarding an item. And any number of things might come up at that stage. So,
Thank you.
yeah, and I'll entertain any of that. Matt?
Thank you, Chair. One question kind of was just touched upon. The funds for improvements around the college. If it does not go through, are those funds still available or do they get pulled back?
My understanding is that those funds are here to advance improvements. Yes.
So clearly, like regardless of the outcome of if it gets built or not, we basically got some extra funds.
From Tallahassee, from central office, it's about $23 million. So it'll stay in Hillsborough County and on these projects.
Perfect. Thank you. And then the other question I have is Suncoast expansion from Van Dyke to Lutz. That's self-funded through tolls and through them, right? So that wasn't coming out of funds for something else, correct?
Yeah, the Turnpike, their entire work program is funded through user fees.
Awesome. Thank you.
Ed?
Yeah, I'm gonna make some comments. I'm gonna first self-identify as a policy wonk. But I've got some comments to make without prejudice about the actual project. But I believe I'm sorry, the I-275 project. The TIP is supposed to represent funding that has been committed over a 5-year period. Since there's no funding committed over the next 5-year period, I guess my contention would be that this project should be deferred till the TIP in 27 or 28 or 29. And, this matter of the 52,000, for 52,000, you can't hardly design the driveway going into your house. And my I don't know this, but my suspicion is that 52,000 may have been assigned as part of a previous definition of this project. And I don't know that to be the fact, but it's just sort of a speculation that may have been part of back when this project was a project to design sound walls. I don't know that, but it's just a guess. But I think, I just think on the principle, the TIP is not designed to like shoot an arrow 10 years into the future. And I mean, when it's ready to be funded, put it in the TIP. And if that's 28 or 29 or 2030, so be it, but it doesn't belong there now.
Other questions or comments here to the left side of the room? No. Right side, y'all are on. Chris, hand up.
Yeah. I apologize. It's been a crazy week. Been trying to catch up on LDC for the city of Tampa, and I've been so engrossed in that. There is a mentioning of express lane maintenance in the tip, and I don't remember which project number that was. Can you explain to me what express lane maintenance is all about?
Great question that if you could find the item number, I have somebody on my team online who could look that up for us. Sure.
I'd have to like go through this whole document, but it's like kind of in the beginning, and there is a line item that talks about express lane maintenance, and I believe it's probably for I-275. I thought I highlighted, but I can't find it now. Yeah, you probably can work search it in there and it'll pop up. But I do have a question, while that's pending. On Appendix J, which kind of defies some of the procedures around the preliminary engineering. I think it's kind of a touching upon what Ed is talking about. It seems like the tip itself is constrained to 5 years to be fiscally like appropriate. So it makes it easier for the TPO to like operate from an expenditure standpoint. So like from 5 years ahead, how much things are going to cost, which allows you guys to budget, or FDOT mainly to budget in the next 5 years and so on, and also to help craft an LRTP. But I couldn't find anywhere in Appendix J that defines like a placeholder status. Because with this scenario with the I-275 widening, there doesn't seem to be like some type of limitation. So is there any language in the state statutes or any type of project manual for the tip that clearly identifies any type of placeholder status statute limitation? I think that's kind of important because that kind of gets back to the accountability of keeping things in budget for the TPO. So are you aware of anything like that at all that exists?
That's a great question. And I am also a policy wonk. So in advance of this meeting, I went through 23 CFR 450-326, which governs the tip. And there's a section in there that talks about what each project should have. Sufficient descriptive material, identification of the agencies responsible. So while this seems like a little bit of an outlier because there's zero, it still meets the regulatory requirement of what must be included in the tip. And I also wanted to add, this isn't the only one. So I misspoke, I think, at the workshop. There's one other project in the tip, the I-275 that gets into drive or potential, the DDI. That project also is in the tip, but with no funding programmed. I couldn't give you a reason why. I could speculate, but I think it's just due to the nature of the work program and its relationship to the tip.
Okay, I think the key difference here, and it's important for this committee to understand, is that this specific segment was under a supplemental environmental impact statement that dealt with a lot of cultural resource impacts and environmental impacts, which I don't think the Gibson Drive project is part of. And then second, I think what Ed mentioned in the last meeting on the phone was that it seems like FHWA would not view this as a programmed project in the tip anymore, because it would exceed the 4-year window or the 5-year window that we have in the tip. And so I guess, has FHWA commented, or have they alerted your staff that this project will no longer be a program resource? And I guess to all of us here, what would that mean in terms of priority?
So I don't think Federal Highway has commented or would have an opinion. I think I used to work at Federal Highway. If I were in their shoes, I would consider this to be illustrative of what is a project that's a priority to the region. And it's in there. You're right, though. Nothing is programmed. But that's my best guess.
All right, and then my final question is, we are under an LRTP 2050, right? So essentially, this project might be completed right at the end of that LRT 2050 program. Is it feasible to assume that? Because what I'm getting at is that we're kind of at the threshold where we're putting a project ahead of the time frame that we're planning as a forecast on our highway system and our transportation projects. So I feel like this is not really truly in sync or center into the long range planning of the TPO. Has that been an issue with your team or staff?
Your question correctly, Chris, and when this is done, I think I pulled up your report. You're asking where does this project fall within our currently adopted LRTP?
Well, correct, because it seems like right now we really don't know when it's going to get constructed. We have kind of a rough date, if you will, but I saw there, I think 2050, and we're at the, with a 2050 study, we're kind of at the cusp with that. So I'm just wondering, because we're at that end of that spectrum, does that cause any red flags or concerns with TPO staff? Because it's kind of at the end of that long range transportation plan study. And I feel like, what I understand, if the highway project doesn't meet the LRTP, then essentially it's out of the tip. Is that correct? So like if we were in October to say goodbye interstate system, then it would be out of the tip, no matter if it's in preliminary engineering or not.
So it is my understanding, and we'll have to double check unless Elizabeth has it or her team can look it up. Is that this is consistent with our long range transportation plan? Off the top of my head, I couldn't say where in the long range transportation plan it falls. Elizabeth might be.
It's in there. It's within the cost.
Yeah. It's in the cost feasible long range plan. So we think before 2050, it will
be built and active and okay. And if it next year, if it isn't, then what happens? Because it just seems like this being in a placeholder status with no funding, it looks like it could be pushed back. Or timelines could be adjusted because there really isn't any regulation on this right now. It's a placeholder.
The long range transportation plan can be amended. We usually get requests that might trigger the LRTP being amended. If not, it gets updated every 5 years. And we have a new adoption every 5 years. So about 2 years from now, that will be occurring.
Okay. So going back to the express lane maintenance, do we know what that entails specifically?
Yes, I'm online. Connor Churros, McDonald TPO staff, if you can hear me.
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm going to put this source in the chat. It's from FDOT on managed lanes, but they describe maintenance. I'm going to read like from the text. So it says managed lanes maintenance is performed for the ITS equipment and the portion of the roadway that is operating as managed lanes. So these features include assets such as drainage, guardrails, crash cushions, pavement markings, rigid or flexible pavement signs, tubular markers, and concrete barriers. There's two types of maintenance. One is routine, which is what it sounds like, schedules ITS equipment and roadway maintenance with the intent of preventing or minimizing a future equipment failure and preserving, repairing, or replacing those features. There's also responsive maintenance, which occurs in response to equipment failure or an incident. Does that help?
Yes, Connor, I do have a question because I'm right next to the downtown interchange. I've been under about 3 years of construction among every other thing that's happening in Ybor City. So with this maintenance, could this happen without any notification to the residents that live around the downtown interchange?
That is a great question. I think it might be pulled up on the screen. Sarah and I were looking behind the scenes, and it looks like this, and Elizabeth might be able to clarify this more than I can, but this project here is Hillsborough County Asset Maintenance Management Contract. I'm not sure, either Suzanne or Elizabeth may be able to help, but I don't know if that would include maintenance projects countywide or not.
Dan Ziegler, I thought, sorry, I'm looking at the screen trying to figure out, I need to look that up and I can get that information back to you as to what it entails. Because it's not. The description is not very, user friendly, like, I don't know what that means, so, I will check and get that back to the TPO staff and get it to distribute it to you guys.
Okay, all right. I have no further questions. Thanks for your patience.
Okay, I think I saw a couple of hands popping up while Chris was talking. Was there? Aya, did you have something? You're right.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that it appears that the only reason this project is in the tip today is because of transparency and because they spent money last year on this project, and it's for transparency purposes. There is no money in the next 5 years on this project, so next year this is gonna drop off. So I am not sure what is the concern of the committee is, thinking that DOT is having a placeholder or putting it in the tip here for reasons. No, this is only for programming and transparency, that there was money on this project in 2026. And that's what they want to show. Next year is gonna drop off
Drop off of what?
of the tip, because every year, if there's a project, so in the first column that says before 2027. The first column saying the $52,000, this is how much was spent and was programmed in 2026. Which is current. So if they did not show it actually in the tip, that means that they're not transparent of how much money is being used right now, but possibly for staff. Like the reason Suzanne is here, she probably has to charge her time. And other people working on this project, they have to charge their time because they're talking about and researching this project. That's why there's $52,000 there. So this is only for transparency reasons and because there's current money on this project, which is $52,000. Next year, they're not gonna put any money on it because there's not gonna be any money in 2027. So the project is gonna drop off next year.
And I want somebody from DOT to tell me that this project is gonna drop off next year if you don't put any money into it. Frankly, I don't think that's the case. Somebody tell me that.
Make sure this is FDOT on it. FDOT, Suzanne Ziegler, so she is correct in some aspects. So I do not charge my time to project related things. That's not part of what was spent in, and again, mine isn't bad. So the dash and then the 27, that could be anything that was spent in prior years, not just 26. It could be 23, whatever. There are multiple money. It's outside the band. So it is showing you guys that money was spent in prior years on the project. Currently, there is nothing programmed like you see here. And so if nothing is programmed, the expectation is that it would not be in the next tip. Now, say money fell from the sky and we were able to fund it and we came to you guys and we had to do an amendment. We would have to do an amendment to put it in. It's on your law, and then we would take it from there. But next year, we don't anticipate having money, so this would not show. Does that make sense? It's a little confusing because the tips, sometimes the projects fall out, but they're still being worked on. Like Hart Heavy Maintenance Facility got a grant. And so they got it in 26. Well, they don't have money in 27. It's not gonna show. You know what I mean? So there's certain things and it's a little bit complicated. But for all intents and purposes, as you can see, there is no funding in 27 through 31, which is the tip years this year. And we don't anticipate that being an issue. I think if you look at the cost feasible plan for the CIS for the state, there are other areas that are higher on the list that need money, and I would assume that they would probably get allocated that money first. Again, I don't have a crystal ball, but it would not be going forward in there if there's no money.
Hold on. All right. Chris, before I come back to you. Sarah, did you have something?
I did. I just wanted to share, and I think we said this at the workshop, that from the TPO's perspective, we do prefer that it remains in the tip for transparency because there's such a public interest in it. So we know there are zeros.
We know it is a little confusing to read, but from our perspective, we think that it is better to have it here and show what it shows than to have it be segmented on it.
Let me ask this question, and correct me if I'm wrong. If we were to recommend and the TPO board were to approve the recommendation, if we were to recommend striking this item from the tip, it still lives on in the LRTP as it did back in 2021 when it was stricken from the tip then. And it still lives on in the TPO priority list, correct?
So in 2021, I believe it was in the priority list, which at that time was part of a table in the tip. But it is currently on our priority list and it is currently in our long-range.
Okay, so for purposes of transparency, the documents exist and the project exists. Anybody that cares to review them, they're there so that it's transparent. My concern is that it's transparent now on a document where it has no business being at all. Procedurally, it has no business being there at all. FDOT and the TPO are not following their own rules. That's my concern, and I'll get back to that. Before I go there, Chris?
Yeah, so I'm a little bit confused about the point that our committee member made about it falling off the tip. From my understanding under Appendix J again, sorry, I keep on pounding on this. It has to be a joint decision between FDOT and the MPO or the TPO to discharge this project. So even if there was no money, we would still have to get a board approval to eject this from the TIP and for it to appear later on if possible. Is that procedurally how that would work? So it isn't going to just fall off next year.
No, and so that's where it gets confusing, and so I would rely on TPO staff to, so the tip is done every year, and it's for 5 years, and so the previous year falls off. The projects that were funded and obligated in that funding year, so they fall out of the report. And so that's where it gets confusing, and that's where I think the issue is, because they would look at the tip and be like, oh, it's not here. But maybe it's still in the tip from 2 years ago, and that money is still living on because it takes a couple years to do the project. So I think that there's,
Okay,
yes.
there are some hands over here to the left. Ed was up first, so Ed, go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say, you said that although it was stated that these pre-27 was 2026, as you said, it could have been 2022, all we know is it was before 2027. So why wouldn't it not be the case next year that a column like that will still be there? Everything will just be advanced year, but that column will still exist because before 2027, $52,000 spent. And I was going to answer one of Chris's comments. The code, the federal code, Title 23, that deals with TIP says if the TIP covers more than 4 years, or in our case, it's 5 years, the FHWA and FTA will consider the project in the additional years as informational. Now, to me, informational is not like committed. I mean, I'm not sure what informational means. If there are projects like shown in the DOT work program, that it is out there in, future years. But if it's not in the TIP, it seems like FHWA doesn't yet quite recognize it.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, the screen that you're looking at doesn't convey anything. And what Sarah is saying is that they're wanting to include this for informational purposes, and that is the purpose of this, but it's also just showing the role of what has been spent before. So, I can't speak to how the TPO wants to display this. That would be something that they have to do. And I would have to talk to FHWA about that in regards to how they would look and perceive that as well. Because there's been a lot of turnover and a lot of changes, and we just want to make sure that we have that.
I have a question. I was going to take a chair prerogative here and jump ahead in the line because I want to understand this. When I was digging into the weeds of this tonight or yesterday and then this morning, And I called TPO staff to let you all know that I was going to be asking about this. So hopefully you had a chance to review it. I went into the, let's see, what is it? It's Appendix B, the Capital Improvements Program. Yeah. And there are a number of bullet points there talking about the CIP, again, the Capital Improvements Program. The last bullet point is the FDOT work program. I hot linked onto the FDOT work program and plugged in the item number for this project and pulled up the 5-year work program for this project. And what I found interesting, did either of you have a chance to review that? Did you get the warning that I was going to be asking this question?
Got the warning, I'm familiar with it.
Okay. Might you be able to pull it up on the screen? Are you that warned?
I'll see what if I can get.
Okay, I'll ask the question and maybe Sarah can find it. It's fairly easy to hot link to if you know it's there and what you're looking for. And if you need the item number, I can give you that. The first line item on the 5-year work program says PE begin. That's what does PE mean?
Preliminary engineering.
Okay, and that's supposed to be the line after which you're beyond the point of no return, right? PE begins. That's what your own memo says. It was in our package. Yeah.
And then statute.
Okay. PE began, and it says November 13 of 2024. I asked before, when did we cross over the line? PE is crossing over the line. According to their work program, they crossed the line in November of 2024.
Yeah.
July, August, September, or November, which was 4 months after the WASTL motion that was made at the public hearing in June of 2024. So according to your own work program, the program engineering or project engineering didn't take place until the end of 2024. So am I reading that correctly? Or can I not take your document, FDOT, or face value? Is the document wrong?
That document just linked to the.
I really don't. Like, go to the record again. I don't have the document. I don't know. I was not given the information, I know that you could be on this. But be happy to look at it and see, but I don't have an estimated guess.
Sorry that didn't get word to you. I wasn't looking down at share. Let me see.
I understand.
This one, no, it's, the management. Oh, it's.
I just have to, okay, so transparency, I will have to talk to the project managers because I think that this ultimately was part of the bigger project.
It's under the item number for this project.
I understand, but if you take it back, towards the TBX gears on the website, so the Hillsborough to MLK. Originally, it was all one project. And then it got subdivided, so on a technical basis, I'm not exactly sure. So I don't want to misspeak for the department, but I will take this back. And, talk to Secretary Hall and leadership and see what I can provide you. Information.
Well, if you would, take back the citation and not the document, because I want to keep the
Oh,
document.
no, you can keep the document. No, definitely, but I do want to write down what is the, okay, the work program report for 5 years. Okay, yep, I will. And
Yeah.
write that down.
Elizabeth, can you just pass that on back down the corridor there?
Mr. Chair, if I could, please,
Okay.
real
No,
quick.
no, I'm done for right now. I'll go ahead and open back up for questions. Go ahead, Joe.
I'm sorry, Connor, are you there?
Yes, sir.
The link that you provided in the chat is not working. Could you resend that or send us a better link?
Yes, just sent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Dana?
New topic. Is there anything in the tip about, there was a project that we learned about, for wrong way drivers on the interstate? Is that in the tip?
I believe DOT has constructed all of those. But Connor, if you could also just do a control F to see if any of those wrong way driving But my recollection is that those have all been completed.
Was
Absolutely.
it signals or something? I was on the wrong way like 2 months ago and there was a wrong way driver and a bunch of people had.
Yeah.
So.
I know, it can be scary out there. Yeah, my recollection of those projects is DOT prioritized the interstate system for both signage and also sensors to alert first responders in case there was somebody who went the wrong way down the interstate, so they could be quickly intercepted.
And those are constructed?
That is my understanding. And Connor, what did you find?
Yes, absolutely. So I just did a quick control F on the tip. I don't see anything in for wrong. So that's just what I found, but I'll continue looking to see if there's what the history is on the wrong way driving projects. But what I see is not in within the tip, at least in the control F. So
Anything else over here to my left?
Sure.
Jamie?
Thanks. Thank you, Chair. Quick first comment is just that I always find it really confusing how projects are labeled. So you said that the Air Cargo Road and Tampa Bay Boulevard operational and safety improvements is actually a widening project. The word widening, whatever, fine. Can you quickly go through the 6 projects and give me maybe layman's terms or what information you do have for what those improvements would be?
I can, unfortunately, it will be quick because the only details that we know are those capacity sections in the signal. So this Dale Mabry intersection operational safety improvements, I believe that is the project that is line item for the Steinbrenner signal. The Boy Scout Road Boulevard intersection operational safety improvements. Those scopes have not been defined, but for example, that could probably include some turn lanes, a pedestrian crossing, maybe upgrading the pet signals. Those are the types of improvements that could be bundled under that, that kind of broad category of operational and safety improvements. I've made a note, and Sarah, if you can keep me accountable for this, maybe as the projects advance with DOT, we can check in 6 months and see if there's more detail. The MLK optical and safety also don't have much detail on that. The Air Cargo Road and Tampa Bay Boulevard, that's those segments in red where DOT has said that they plan to, I think, add a lane to increase throughput. Then the Dale Mabry area operational safety improvements, I believe this is a really long one to kind of capture any need as the site plan moves along and as local elected officials continue to make decisions. And then the Dale Mabry pedestrian operational and safety improvements. Again, my best guess are things that protect pedestrians. Maybe in the future that's a ped bridge, maybe it's some mid-block crossings. Just don't have a ton of details right now.
But the total value is 23 million. That's it.
Across these 6 projects. At this time, it could change in the future, and if that did, it would likely come back to the committees and board for approval.
And then the last thing I'll say as a comment. So these are all lumped in under what is it? Resilience and safety or improvements, maintenance and resilience projects within the TIP.
Some, yeah, smart cities, some Vision Zero. It kind of gets to the difficulty sometimes of completely categorizing a project when you don't know all the details. So it's our best guess.
Okay, and then the I-275 looks like it's also a resilience and improvement or
The I-275 from Hillsborough to Beers would have been coded as a major project since it's a widening.
on the mapper, it looks like it's under good repair and resilience, just so.
I'll double check on that. One thing it also might be is there are many projects and sometimes it's difficult to get the right one.
Sure.
But thanks for the heads up. I'll double check that.
Any other hands up here to my left? The other hands up here to my right? Chris Bellett?
So I have a technical question. Usually after like the PD&E phase, there's an issuance of LCDA. For TBX or this project, this whole highway project, let's call it that. Does the LDCA get awarded per segment that the PDE, or is it the entire project that's under the environmental evaluation?
My understanding, and I'm not an NEPA expert, the LDCA is issued per that categorical or per that EIS. However, those limits were defined. So I have to go
Okay.
back and look at that specific one, but it wouldn't be for the whole interstate system, one LDCA. It would be
Okay.
For specific segments.
What I'm trying to get at is that I think what I would be concerned about, and I'm not for it at all, but there was a purpose and need that was defined in the EIS evaluation for all of this support work, right? So if this happens way later on and the purpose and need is not fulfilled, is it possible that FHWA can pull the project out because it never succeeded to what it was supposed to provide to the community and the county and Tampa? Because you would have an incomplete project, basically. So you're wasting a lot of time and resources and money, you know. So is that like a linchpin to say like this fails to meet the purpose and need, so therefore, like, let's can it?
So my understanding of again, NEPA is really in place to evaluate projects, not to choose them or justify them, but set up a process. So I don't believe Federal Highway goes back and double checks, hey, after it was built, did you
It's unfortunate.
do all that? I know, I understand that.
Yeah.
But that's, and my limited understanding of NEPA, that would kind of be outside of Federal Highways.
Okay.
Responsibilities.
Okay. Anything else here to the right in the room? I don't know that. Does anybody want to see the 5-year work program? If you haven't, document that I showed to the FDOT representative. Okay, I don't know if you need to go back into that right now. Okay, and I've been ignoring the good folks online. Have there been any questions, any hands up online?
Anyone online wishing to speak on this item? Seeing no one online wishing to speak right now.
Okay. I've got just a quick comment. I'll pass the gavel at a point here and make a motion. First of all, I'm going to start on a positive note. I don't know if it's been a part of the package before or not, but it's the first one I can remember. Your appendix that's titled Projects that may be subject to Florida Statute 339175 D8. This is the memo having to do with projects that may be beyond the point of no return, with an actual list of what those projects are. It's like about 7 or 8 of them there. We've been asking for something like this for years. I don't know that it's ever happened before. If it did, I missed it, because it seems like I always was complaining that we didn't have it. And I'm sorry that it got buried in the appendixes. It wasn't part of what, just jumped out at me. I was digging in the weeds and I found it, scratching my head. I hope that the folks on the TPO board are given notice that this exists so that they know as they're litigating these line items, that it's possible that they're going to be voting on something that the next time they see it will be beyond the point of no return. This will be the last chance they have. All right. It doesn't belong in an appendix buried somewhere in the bowels of the document. So hopefully you'll resurrect it and give it the light it deserves. All right. That's as close to positive as I can get. I'm really trying. I'm going to pass the gavel to my vice chair and ask to be recognized for a motion.
Rick, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'm going to make that this should come as no huge surprise to anybody that's been listening to anything for the last few weeks. This is a motion to strike item number 431821-3 from the tip. The description being I-275, State Road 93, close paren, from north of Hillsborough to south of Beers Avenue. I think that's probably sufficient for purposes of the motion. Requesting a second.
Second.
A second from Chris Vella. Is there discussion on the motion?
I'll just make a couple of quick comments. I think a lot of this has been already addressed during the Q&A. And I'm really following Ed's lead to a large degree, so I don't mean to be taking any wind out of his sails. Hopefully you'll have some more comment as well on the motion. This is really nothing other than a procedural motion at this point. There have been plenty of substantive arguments having to do with this particular segment of Interstate 275 going back now over 10 years. Forget for a moment that the community that has to bear the burden of this project has been showing up for years and has been pleading with the TPO board to get it the hell out of our lives. Let's put that aside for a moment. This is procedural. The tip is supposed to be for projects that are going to be addressed within a 5-year window that are funded. This project is neither within a 5-year window nor funded. Procedurally, it does not belong in the tip. Procedurally, it should be stricken from the tip. It continues to live on in the priority list. It continues to live on in the LRTP. It won't be lost forever. It's not necessary for transparency that it live here. So I'm asking you, please, from a procedural perspective, that you ask the TPO board to follow their own rules and strike it from the tip.
Any other comments or discussion? Ed?
Yeah, I would just say, I think Rick has sort of summed up my point of view, and I'm saying that without prejudice about the actual project. I may actually vote for the project when it is in the TIP, but I just think it's not in the 5 years, so it doesn't belong in the TIP.
Good. Since there's no other comments,
Maybe a question. If funding, someone brought up earlier, funding happened magically. If 4 months from now, funding came magically, and there's money to just get started on this right away, does this being in the tip change any of the procedures that would happen then? Or if it wasn't, would it need an extra round of approvals or something, or amendments?
Great question. No, so if money fell from the sky greater than $2 million, and again, to do design on this project, it's going to be a hefty amount. It would have to go through the tip amendment process, whether it was in the tip today or if it was added later. So if funding were to be added, it would come back before you.
okay, any other last comments online?
Anyone online wishing to speak on the motion? I see none.
All right, I think we can do a vote. Since it's in the tip, maybe we should go around.
Do the roll call. I can read it. Rick Hernandez,
Yes.
Dana Lazarus,
Yes.
Stephen Hollenkamp,
No.
Susie Watts,
Yes.
Joseph Citro,
Yes.
Matt Singh,
Yes.
Edward Juski,
Yes.
Chris Bella,
Yes.
Chris Gonzalez,
Yes.
Ibea Adams,
Yes.
Stephen Jones,
Yes.
Carson Bush,
Yes.
Jamie Jones,
No.
Stephen Gainer,
Yes.
motion passes. Wait, I didn't vote. Oh, sorry, I missed you. I'm late. Okay. Aya?
Yes.
Thank you for pointing that out. Motion passes.
I was a yes.
She was a yes.
Yeah.
So I've got 1, 2 no's.
13 yeses, 2 nos. That's what I'm reading. Yeah. Thank you all very much. I'll take back the gavel. All right. So any other motions to be addressed at this juncture? We have an ask, recommended approval of the FY 27 through 31 Transportation Improvement Program to the board. We have now approved an amendment by way of striking that one item, or at least recommending that one item. So do we have an enabling motion on this or some other motion? Iacine has a motion. What is the motion?
Motion to approve the recommended action, with amendments,
Okay,
as approved.
as amended.
As amended.
All right, that's the motion. Is there a second? And Susie Watts is the motion and seconding person today. Susie Watts offers a second. Is-
like to move the meeting along.
No, God
Sorry.
bless you. All right, we've got a motion, we've got a second, discussion. Dana?
So I'm gonna be voting no on this tip. I feel that, so I've been on the CAC for 9 years now. And I've learned a lot, and I'm learning that I feel that this whole preliminary engineering being the point of no return, right? And if you look at all these highway widening projects and massive roadway widening projects in the tip, they have preliminary engineering that has some small amount of money prior to 2026 with a massive price tag in future years of 10 million plus, 300 million plus, 800 million plus dollars in future years. So it feels really unfair. And I feel like this process doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't want to disillusion people. I want to stay on the CAC because I like learning about the projects that are coming. I like giving input on studies and things like that. But this TIP process is supposed to be our local voice of how our federal funding is spent. And year after year, over 9 years, we have provided a voice. We've organized the community has organized itself to come out and have a voice about what we want our federal money spent on, and we are not listened to. 2 years ago in 2024, a project that we had gotten removed from the TIP was put back in. And I've heard that the TPO members don't respect the CAC and what we tell them a lot of the time. I won't say every time because we've gotten through before. But when it comes to the TIP, I feel that nothing that we have recommended has ever been really moved forward and manifested. So I just wanted to explain why I will be voting no on this entire TIP. There are a lot of highway widening projects in this TIP. And I'm not even going to make a motion to amend or remove them because it won't matter. I know the individuals on our TPO and I know their motivations and their values, and I know that they will not listen. So thank you.
Okay. More discussion on the motion. To the left here, anything? I'm a person of habit. I start here over my left. Anything going on over here? No. All right, over here to the right, Chris Vella.
Just gonna echo Dana's thoughts. It is extremely frustrating and I've totally been where you're at. But use this moment right now and document it because the TPO has to go through recertification. And the moment that you find a crack in their point of procedure, how they manage a TIP, that's your opportunity to go to the federal government and say, no, we don't want them to be recertified. And I hate to throw, because I do love staff here, and I do love some of the people in this building, but sometimes you just have to throw that stop sign and to recheck the whole process to make sure it's fair and really transparent. Because there's obviously a mistrust between the TIP process and the public. It's extremely difficult to understand this process. I still this day can't explain it in clarity to anybody out there of how they should get involved with the TIP process because I'm lost. That's why I'm asking you so many questions because I don't know. And I'm always on the fly. I feel like I'm always in the back end just trying to catch up. But realize that when we have these discussions, document them because this board's going to go for a recertification. And that's when you need to tell them that, yes, this process is unfair, it is unclear, and we're sick of the $1 billion placeholders that are like 30 years out. It just has to end. There needs to be some accountability and there has to be some procedure. So I'm going to go with the TIP, unfortunately. But again, I do feel what you're feeling on that big time.
Okay, any more comments
Chair,
on the motion? Jamie?
if I could say, I messed up on the last vote. We were thinking that we were voting on the amended action, but just to say why I voted no before, but I'm still going to be voting no on this, on the 10th.
Okay. I think what you just said was that you voted
I like
other
the
than what you intended to vote on the
last,
motion to strike the 275 expansion. Yeah,
correct,
you went down as a no and you meant to be a yes.
correct, and I will be a no on the next.
Okay. Any other questions or comments here? Dana, I guess, hit a nerve with me. So just a couple of comments. First of all, historically, for those of us who have been doing this now for years, I too have been on this, but I had hair when I started here. And I was looking back, compliments of the TPO staff. I asked them to send me the minutes of the 2021 board meeting when this particular project, the 275 widening project north of Hillsborough to Beers, was stricken on a motion that was made by Pat Kemp. And it was interesting to me how things have changed over those years. Just historically, so you know, there were 15 individuals that voted on that motion. Joe Sigfer was one of them. He was sitting on the board at that time as a member of city council. And the vote went down 11-4 to remove that item from the tip. 11-4. The people that voted to keep it in the tip were Charlie Krug for Paul Anderson, that was the Port Authority. Gina Evans for Joe Lapano, that was the Aviation Authority. Nate Kilton for Rick Lott out of Plant City. And Andrew Ross out of Temple Terrace. Only those four, none of whom, well, I know she's not on anymore. These are the people that voted then in 2021. None of whom are in any way, shape, or form accountable to the folks that are actually being burdened by the project, and only one or two of whom are even elected officials. But that gives you some sense of how much things have changed. And getting an 11-4 vote for something like this now would be unheard of. But back then, actually had the sense that people on the TPO board were listening to us. I don't get the sense that that's happening now. Well, elections have consequences. The other thing that I'm going to, I've been meaning to tee off on this for a while in this room, so I'm going to do it now. I think you all are aware of a comment that was made by Andy Ross a few months back when we came either at the TIP hearing last year or the year before, or the LRTP hearing. And the issue at hand was this 275 project. A lot of people came to voice their opinions about the project needing to be removed. The vote was taken, they ignored us. Not ignored us, the CAC, ignored the community that had come to oppose the project. And on the record, on video, you can watch it if you have some popcorn and you have a beer. Mayor Ross actually said that he wished that the DOT would just go ahead and build this project so that we would not keep coming back to complain about it. He said that in the room, on the record, on a mic, while there were people still in the room, in the gallery, who had just poured out their hearts for the umpteenth time about having this project removed from the tip. The other thing that, you know, that clearly that's not a good message coming from the chair, which he was and is at the time that he made that comment. The other thing that keeps coming back that I am going to address at the next TPO board meeting as an individual, not as a chair of this committee, was the continued assertion on the part of Commissioner Wassel that the motion he made in 2024 to put the capacity project language back into the tip, an action that was defined by Lynn Hertek at the time as a bait and switch, that unnoticed motion and the effect that it had on the community, that was done exactly the same way it had been done back in 2021 when the motion was made to strike the item from the tip by Pat Kemp. There could not be anything more untrue and incorrect about that if you tried. In 2021, the tip was being brought to the TPO board as part of a public hearing, just as it was in 2024. The difference being the issues having to do with the TBX, TB projects were very much front and center. The CAC had litigated those items. The CAC made recommendations, as we have previously and since, to strike items from TBX, TB from the tip. There was absolutely no question that those issues were going to be litigated during the TPO board meeting. There was no surprise. And I just told you how the vote went down 11-4. None of that, we like the word transparency around here. None of that transparency, none of that notice happened in 2024 when Wassel slipped in his motion at the 11th hour. None of us were ready to argue it. The community wasn't ready there to oppose it. And of course, again, elections have consequences. We didn't have the numbers. May not have had the numbers no matter how much notice we have had, but it didn't make the action right. Didn't look right. It just stunk. So When Dana feels frustrated, when Chris feels frustrated, I echo that. I feel frustrated. We are not being listened to. We're not being fairly treated as a community and as a CAC for all the time that you guys put in here in good faith. I don't think that you're being well respected either. All of you have appointing authorities. If you have appointing authority or you're at large. If you feel strongly about anything you're hearing now, or you would like to be reckoned with more fairly, speak to your appointing authority. Let them know that you don't feel you're being listened to or that the CAC isn't being respected. If you're at large, there's a podium in that room next week. You can come and talk then. That's it. I'm sorry. Again, I'm taking a lot more time, but I needed to get some of that off my chest because it does weigh on you after a while. And one more. This is my favorite. Nate Kilton. He's your current mayor, right? He was sitting in for Rick Lott during one of the TPO board meetings. Joe may have even been there at the time. I don't know. It was 2016, 2017. I don't remember. I remember Nate Kilton sitting up there at the dais and making the comment, you know, and this is paraphrasing. If this project were being proposed for Plant City, I would be right there with you. I would be arguing against this just like you guys are now. But it isn't in Plant City. It's in your neighborhood. So I'm going to have to support it. The lack of empathy that comment reflected, again, in the room, on the mic, on video, to have the temerity to say that to our faces, and that may have even been the meeting that went till 2 o'clock in the morning. There were a lot of pissed off people in the room that night. But that's the kind of history that this project has. There's a reason why we keep on chewing on this thing like a bulldog with a bone. It won't go away. It's not going to die. This thing's going to be around longer than I'm going to be around, probably with the construction period that they have set out for it. What is it, 2045 before they're going to construct this thing? I'm like 90 years old. I'll be in a walker if I'm lucky and living at all. But we're going to keep coming back every year. This whole damn thing is going to come back every year, despite what Mayor Ross thinks. All right, I'll shut up now. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Do what you want. Oh, I got the gavel, don't I?
We have a motion and a second.
All right. The motion is to recommend the approval of the FY 2731 Transportation Improvement Program to the TPO board as amended. Roll call vote, please.
Hernandez?
No.
Emma Lazarus?
No.
Stephen Hollenkamp?
Yes.
Susie Watts? Yes. Joseph Citro?
And as I bang my head against the wall again, no.
Matt Fink?
No.
Maria Steve?
Yes.
Ed Murphy?
Yes.
Chris Mella?
I have to change and go to a no.
Chris Gonzalez?
No.
Olivia Adams?
No.
Stephen Jones?
Yes.
Carson Bush?
No.
Jamie Jones?
No.
Stephen Gainer?
No.
Motion fails. Let's see. I have 5 yeses and 10 no's.
Okay, I think that concludes our entertainment for the evening as far as the tip goes. What's our next action item?
Good evening, Wade Reynolds, TPO staff. I'm here to introduce Sharon Wright from HDR, who will be presenting the local roadway resilience countermeasure study. You've heard this to our May meeting, I believe. And we're very thankful to Applied Sciences and HDR for their work on this. Thank you.
Chair Fernandez, committee members. I'm Sharon Wright with HDR. I'm a resilience and practice lead with the firm, focused across Florida, based here in Tampa Bay, long time. My background is in city planning and environmental science, with several years in the public sector, building sustainability and resilience programs. So my first time speaking with you, and that's what you have to. I'm very pleased to be here to present this local roadway resilience work to you as a citizens advisory committee Thank you for all you do. That, we have given similar presentations recently to have the technical advisory committee and then next week to the board as well. So local roadway resilience counters. Why this study? This is building on, some of you may already know, there are a lot of vulnerability assessment studies looking at infrastructure, a wide variety of infrastructure at a county level, at a regional level, and it's showing things from water treatment plants to parks, but also major roads and evacuation. So a lot of that is out there. The TPO wanted to take this step to look at some of the resilience elements or countermeasures that can mitigate flood and heat impacts with a focus on your local ones. While the TPO does not implement resilience projects on their own, this study, which results in the deliverable of the guidebook that you have in your package, is meant to support partner collaborations for resilience funding strategies. We're not here today to get your approval or for you to adopt specific solutions for a specific project, but to include the study as part of the TPO's toolbox for resilient local funding. So based on a review of those studies, existing studies that are out there, and some coordination with stakeholders and community staff, the key weather impacts that were identified for the study are flooding, primarily driven by rainfall and by tidal influences, which are increasing in severity, and extreme heat with its growing number of high temperature days that we're having each year. We also use those studies and stakeholder input, committee input, staff input to develop a list of local corridors to use as case studies. The list was then narrowed down to these 3 areas to provide different geographies and different roadway types to look at with countermeasures to the flooding and stream. So with research and development compilation, the local roadway resilience countermeasures were compiled into this guidebook. And the guidebook will then include those 3 corridor areas as illustrative, such as examples. Now, this guidebook has a range of solutions, only some of which we're going to highlight tonight. But many of these solutions will offer multiple benefits. And most of these solutions or adaptive measures are more effective when they're applied together as a subset or a suite of solutions. Also in this guidebook, for your use is a diagnostic framework. So there's diagnostic frameworks in there like this one for rainfall. And what this basically is a framework is a set of questions that can set of opportunities that can drive the initial momentum for discussion and collaboration around a project for resilience considerations on their local projects. The framework is set out for each type of impact, rainfall, tidal, heat in this guidebook, but they can be mixed and matched because we know that most projects don't experience one impact and most have opportunities for multiple countermeasures. So here in the next several slides, just to give you a sense of what's provided in the guidebook. And it includes illustrations and examples like this one. Also in the guidebook are tabular summaries. So you'll have a table of solutions, some of the considerations with that type of solution, the cost, and some local and other examples. Here, this is showing permeable pavement, shown as the solution to mitigating flooding caused by rainfall. Here are some local green infrastructure programs, and like we talked about, combining some of these, often this green infrastructure will include double pavers, like the solution was shown previously. And then strategies to deal with the heat. This guidebook and study does discuss a lot around trees and shade structures. Trees are multi-benefit solutions for many things. This is so of course there's a lot of discussion because I think that if you don't already know, there's a lot around right tree, right place, things to consider. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll do an example. Also, the guidebook discusses ways to deal with heat that include cooling centers, hydration stations, and reflective and protective pavement coatings are also discussed. To do some of those coatings and reduce heat absorption or heat what's known as the heat island effect, making an area extra hot. And then when it comes to tidal strategies, tidal flooding, can often include some of the compound flooding impacts, the other sources of flooding. We often start looking at elevated roadways. The guidebook will also discuss, for your reference and use, that we know that that can impact adjacent properties and can have consequences. So sometimes you have to look at tailoring, how you might grade the adjacent properties, design a driveway apron. There's other things to consider. It's usually a combination of some sort of grading and elevated road, and then it can also include separation. Backflow preventers are another strategy mentioned, because these are often used to keep things from backing up through the pipe system into your structure. And then moving into a couple of the case study examples. So here is the Dana Shores Drive over in Town and Country. Starting to use this kind of just illustrates how you can use a diagnostic framework, start asking questions, start looking at it, you realize that there are load points over there in that southwest corner of the yellow rectangle, where things might be gathering. We also realized that asking questions were adjacent to a golf course, which may be the only quote unquote open space, although I'm not sure Rocky Point Golf Course will feel that way, but it's an idea to start looking for solutions for mutual benefits for those multiple landowners. Further going into the diagnostics, you can look at how this is interacting with the shorelines, with the coastal area. We realize we have limited space here because this area is developed along all of these canals. How is the stormwater system currently performing? Is it a maintenance solution, or do we need to increase capacity through some of those pipes? So then sort of look at that suite of solutions, and you ask, can some elevation of roads, some tailoring of adjacent properties to harmonize with that, along with additional storage. Maybe it's something that some areas picked as floodable areas, because this suite of solutions work for increasing overall neighborhood resilience there. Moving into the second of three case studies, it's North Boulevard. Took this one for the impacts and how to possibly mitigate for some of those. This area was also listed in the city of Tampa's heat resilience playbook. And so using that diagnostic framework around heat, start asking about, is there space for trees and shade structures? Where are the power lines? Are they above ground, underground? Those can impact what kind of trees and shades we can implement there. And if we also know that for trees to survive and thrive in these harsh urban settings, it can be costly, but thinking about multiple and long-term benefits for trees. Heat mitigate, some of those can include heat mitigation, but studies have also shown aesthetic, sometimes the property value increase, mental and physical health are a couple of those things. So there's other things to consider with the cost of multiple benefits. There's also maybe some areas where the right of way is getting a little bit lighter in use. Maybe able to provide space for bicycle pedestrian barriers, open up enough right of way for more types of plantings to mitigate heat. So again, going through the full diagnostic framework and asking some questions, to sort of think about that suite of things that may be available for pooling. So guidebook will include things like concepts. Our teaming partner at Applied Sciences developed some countermeasures concept drawing here, and this shows a way to maybe increase the right of way for trees and think about some space that might have lighter use for plantings. So here we are today, just to share this information with you, and that you consider recommending to the board that they accept the study as just another tool in the toolbox to use with your partners, and to help include resilient design elements in your local roadway projects. The idea of countermeasures and roadway resilience can really be a place to leverage that kind of a framework, or that what might be considered a buzzword sometimes, to really do an early integrated holistic approach to your local projects. So we have to today.
Thank you. All right. Questions, comments, speaker? Left side of the room. Matt Sink, you're first up.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for bringing this kind of in front of us. I always think it's interesting when we talk about sidewalks and improvements and how they never have trees or shade, where basically, you walk down Big Bend Road, they're doing expansion, they're spending the money. And by the time you get about, I don't know, half mile into it, you're gonna have a heat stroke because there's no trees or there's no funding mechanisms to even put them in, or they're promised and never delivered. So I think having something as simple as, this in the toolbox to even contemplate it is valuable. And same thing goes with, treatment of storm surge and how that operates, and having a tool and diagnostic to look at it. So I appreciate your efforts.
Dana?
Is there a dedicated funding source for trees? Maybe trees?
I would leave that to some of the other local government organizations, but I am familiar with the city of Tampa who invests in residential. The city of Tampa's been a leader in urban forestry for quite a while, and it's sometimes an uphill battle. And I don't know exactly how it works at FDOT, but I usually, when cities and local governments are coordinating on those projects, sometimes FDOT plants the trees, and local government has to maintain them, and sometimes they can get them dicey. If you call some cities, it'll say, have a problem with the tree. Well, if it's in a right of way by a ditch, it's next to a park, like, it's the Parks Department, is that, but I know that there are dedicated funding sources, but I don't know that, you have to other funding sources to compile this really.
Wade, you have something to share?
No, I was just agreeing with Sharon. Both the city of Tampa and Hillsborough County have their tree funds, and MPOT has certain landscaping projects. I know there's landscaping associated with the 275 project.
Would you mind identifying yourself?
Sure, Wade Reynolds is that.
Thank you. All right, other questions? Nothing on the left, on the right. Maybe it.
Idea, member at large. I have a general question. How much did this study cost? I was trying to look through the paperwork. I didn't see it.
I think it was a task order for 75, and then by FTUT.
75 million.
Thousand.
Just wondering.
Could you, I had a hard time hearing that. Could you repeat the question and the answer, please?
Sure. My question was, how much was the cost of the study?
Okay, and the answer?
About 75,000, if not exactly, funded by FDOT through the TPO.
Stephen?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Speaking of water management, stormwater management, was there any mention in the study about ditch management or canal management or any of those other things that we use to manage stormwater? I didn't hear you say anything about any of that.
Ditches and canals and some of the case studies are mentioned. It's more discussed as a holistic stormwater system and not specific to those types of.
How so? Could you explain that?
Yes, so when you're looking at how a suite of these solutions might perform, you have to look at the stormwater system as a whole, as a watershed level or sub-basin level for that area. And that may be a place where it is more cost effective to improve, to increase storage capacity in a pipe or something like that. You don't want to design a pump that's pumping out when you're already your stormwater management system isn't working.
So just as an example, I live in an area with canals. And I know some of the canals are filling up because of stormwater drainage. Yet there is no program except some small pittance that the county has agreed to provide. I think it's $50,000. But there's a mountain of paperwork that you have to go through to get it. It's ridiculous. Nobody's going to do it. And if you do it, you have to hire a lawyer to do it. Why isn't there more of an emphasis on just maintaining what we already have to help? Because my neighborhood, for example, flooded during the last hurricanes last year. I know several others in the general South County area with a lot of flooding down there. And one of the reasons for it was that the ditches and the canals are not being maintained. So I didn't hear you talk about that at all.
That's a CIT issue.
Well, I probably know, it doesn't go into detail about stormwater, master planning, stormwater operation and maintenance. That's with each of the different local organizations. I will say that when we looked at the case studies, we're very familiar with some of the stormwater modeling within all of these basins in the TPO area and Hillsborough TPO area. And that was used to consider what might work in part of these case studies. It's an illustrative example. The only other thing I could add, if many of you haven't heard of the Resilient Florida program, it's a 50-50 grant. Your communities have all been awarded something, and they predominantly have been funding flooding mitigation through stormwater. There's lots of other stuff, but that is a big investment that local and state governments are making, to my knowledge. But I do know that if you don't hit a C-click fix or something sometimes before things start hitting, get yourself up there to clean things out and maybe get behind. It's just always not enough money to maintain.
Yeah, the roads are in terrible shape now because of it.
Anything else here on the right? Chris?
So what we're approving today, is it just this document or there's actually going to be a more detailed study?
I don't know what the following plans are for more detailed study with this particular effort instead. And there are a lot of other adaptation planning, a lot of that Resilient Florida programming. And this is for the TPO to use with some of their bigger and smaller partners in the community. But forgive me, I don't know about a more detailed study. What you're looking at today and what the recommendation is to use what this particular task force has developed as a guidebook, a starting point for catalyzing these discussions and using it as a framework to really look at those elements in your projects.
And this is your first time being here, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, because before when we got a presentation about this, and I think Wade was leading that, it was very site specific. And I know on this, it's kind of tilting more, though it's not really saying it, on North Boulevard. So my concern is if we move forward with this, what happens with a community like Palm River on 78th Street? I just don't see that being a priority in this. And I've been on 78th Street quite often. There's a lot of people on that road, like walking too. And I'm just kind of concerned that it just might be overlooked if we approve this. Are we just assuming that these were target sites that are just placeholders, if you will, and they're not necessarily going to occur in that area? Because I'm a little confused.
Sarah?
So the scope of work for this project, was to do a countermeasures guidebook. But as part of that, it was to provide those examples of case studies. And so if you look at the attachment in your agenda packet and report, it does go into some detail on those 3 examples that you saw at the last meeting, Dana Shores Drive, South 78th Street, and North Boulevard. So they're definitely given space and time within the report. But at the end of the day, what we did task the project team with was also really developing the guidebook and using those examples to help show how you could use the guidebook. So that was what we had asked for with this project.
Got it. Okay. I do have a specific question, and it probably might be for Wade. Was there any conversations in regards to 78th Street with Tico? Because Tico owns about maybe 10 to 15 acres of linear pathway where they run their major power lines. I'm assuming it's coming from the plant. And my question is that, was that area viewed as a potential catchment area? Because there are just power poles there. There might be an access road of some sort, but I don't imagine it being busy. So was there any discussions of taking some of that heavy rain flooding and transferring over in that area?
Not specifically with this, but I do know that Tico has used some of their right-of-way areas for other uses than just power line transmission. And it does seem like stormwater facilities that, I don't know if they can do it permanently, but that might be a good co-usage along with just their access. I agree with the points, but no, that specific countermeasure was not on 78.
All right, so I guess like.
Tico stuff.
Okay, yeah, so I guess like this, we're just approving the study, so really nothing is gonna happen immediately after this. This is just saying, this is your toolkit that you can use based on these examples.
Yes, sir. There are no funded
Okay.
projects for either any of those 3 examples.
Got it, okay. Cool, all right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am, sorry. Standing over here to my right, did you have something to offer?
No, just Lauren Brooks with HDR. I'm the contract manager. So I was just here for support. That's all.
It's actually your name on the agenda.
I know. I'm on the presentation.
Okay, well, it's good to know. All right. And did you have anything else that you needed to say in response?
Oh, I just that it was mainly the timing allowed the presentation where we could do all of the examples, but make it equal weighting 78th Street is in there as an example. But again, there was a longer list and that's prioritized these schools because they're different representatives types of things.
Did I get your name on the record again?
Yes, sir. Sharon Wright, HDR Resilience.
I apologize. I thought you were Lauren this whole time. All right.
Sorry.
Sorry. Joe, you had your hand up.
Ladies first.
Okay, well,
Just
that's you, Dana.
thank you. Those dedicated funding sources aren't listed in the guidebook as possible funding sources. I saw like RIC and Resilient Florida. Those are the grant programs for like a one-time injection of funding, but I would have liked to see, I don't know if you can amend this guidebook at this juncture, but more specific recommendations of how our transportation planning and roadway planning, you know, how the implementers of these projects can actually have some kind of accountable protocol that has them tapping into, you know, working with the tree department of that jurisdiction or whatever to make sure these are implemented automatically in our projects. But, and with one specific recommendation being at least to put those sources for tree funding in the guidebook. Thank you.
Mr. Citro.
Thank you very much. A lot of things in your report that I really like. The permeable roadways. What's the life expectancy of them compared to asphalt and cement?
I don't have an exact answer. There's different types of permeable pavement. I know that when we tested out for other local governments we worked on, you want to put it in lighter use areas. Sometimes the maintenance department.
Wonderful. I'm just trying to figure out what is the life expectancy. Will it actually cost more money? Will it cost less? The elevated roadways, a lot of cities are doing that. In that concept, where are you thinking the water is going to flow to the lower levels? Is it going to go into residential area? Is it going to go into somebody's home? Is it going to go into businesses? How are you going to compensate for that?
There's a variety of ways, and I'm not the stormwater engineer on this, but you know, sometimes there's some work we're doing down in Monroe County in the Keys where they're adding kind of smaller, narrower vaults under the street. They're trying to also harmonize and put the use in this report, some of the grading of those residents. And sometimes you're pumping it out to store it in a pond or store it in a pipe until it can get out.
I've heard you mention pump a couple of times. I live in a lovely neighborhood that when you get an hour's worth of rainfall and you have mean high tide, water's got no place to go. Are you ruling out pumping stations in certain areas like Rocky Point, like South Tampa, like North Boulevard that's close to the rivers? Are you ruling that out altogether?
I don't think we've ruled anything out in this guidebook, and I think pumping has to be looked at as a part of the suite of solutions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sir, Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One other question I had. It said having the porous pavement. And what I've heard, and I'd like to get some clarification on there, is that there's a end of life on that because it gets clogged or sediment gets in there and it's no longer effective. Is there a notation anywhere in there that talks about the life or longevity of that, or how to maintain it in a way that can extend that?
Can't remember off the top of my head, and I know that I've looked into this many times. I just don't want to say a number that gets carried down the hallway, but happy to follow up with a couple of examples and ranges for those examples. Maintenance is always gets raised with maintenance and off staff on this stuff. Again, that's why you sort of put lighter use, and you really need to go to you know, think about having an open mind starting at these small. There are areas in, I think it's that Eden, there are some really good close in places to look where it has been successful. I also know that when I first came back to Florida over 10 years ago, that I found out at University of Central Florida, there's a whole laboratory testing that was testing these things, and they were trying them in Jacksonville stuff. So you really have to work, I think, with your staff to build that confidence, find a way to start seeing what works and what doesn't, and expect maintenance. None of this is a free ride. None of this is solving flooding forever, or something getting a little higher, but it's a suite of solutions to keep us going and try some things out like that.
So, thank you.
Okay, anything else to the left? Anything else to the right? Anything online?
Anyone online? Nothing online?
Can I have the ask slide back up again, please?
Recommend
Can
the
I-
TPO
thank you.
board accept the local roadway resilience countermeasures study.
Thank you. I help. Is there an enabling motion? Okay, Ed, offers the motion. Jamie, can I give you the second? All right. We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Anything online?
Anything online on the motion?
No.
Nope.
Let's try this by acclamation. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. Okay, you have a unanimous approval. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, we have one more action item. Crash mitigation and congestion management process. Before we get kicking off on this, we've scheduled this meeting for a 3-hour meeting. I think you all know this, right? It's on your agenda to go till 9 o'clock. In anticipation of the fact that we would have a fair amount of discussion about the tip, which we did. Still, in my fever dream, I was thinking we might be able to get out of here by 8 o'clock anyway. We're going to be done, I think, with our action items by 8 o'clock. So quorum won't be necessary after that. So if anybody needs to leave or wants to leave earlier, I'm not going to hold it against you. I just want you to know I'm still very much attendant to the clock, and I hope we can get out of here close to 8. It may not be 8, but I don't think it'll be 9 either. All right, sir, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's nice to push to go quickly with this. Harry Walsh on TPO staff. And I'm here to tell you about our crash mitigation and congestion management process update that we've been working on, also called our CMCMP. So I want to tell you about what this update is, what it isn't, and talk about some of the hotspots that we've generated through this process, and then look at a very brief high-level case study to show off some of the strategies. There's a strategies toolbox that's part of this. So we initially showed an earlier version of this update a few months ago to this body, but I know there are some new members here. And so what is a CMP? First, before we get to the CMCMP, it is a congestion management process. This is a federally required document for any MPO or TPO that serves an area with over 200,000 residents, which of course Hillsborough has more than 200,000 residents. And there's a prescribed method to look at congestion. So this process asks you to take a look at your roadways, take a subset of them that you think are the highest importance for congestion issues, measure performance measures along them that have to do with congestion, identify hotspots that need to be dealt with, and then take a look at research and what other entities are doing to identify a list of strategies. And then also importantly, to do continuous monitoring and maintenance of this document. So once we do this update, which we've done other updates of this in the past, this is a major overhaul, we're going to continue to update the data in it over time. So everything that we have in here, talked about transparency earlier, all of the data that you'll be seeing is from publicly available sources that update at least yearly, sometimes quarterly, that staff will continue to update on an annual basis, then maybe every several years, we're going to do a major update. So that's for congestion. And we've inherited a great legacy of safety projects here at the TPO. So we also included crash mitigation. So we have a crash mitigation and congestion management process, or CMCMP. So across Hillsborough County and all of its municipalities, there's about 5,525 total public road miles. This network that we're looking at here on this map, and there'll be a lot of maps. I really encourage you to look at the tech memo that's included in your agenda if you want to see anything blown up a little bit more. We are covering about 1,000, so less than 20% of all the total roadways. We have 132 miles of interstate. Those are those black lines on the map. We have 263 miles of arterials, which are the red lines there, and then the other, which is the majority of the miles, and the 614, and that is the blue other roads. And so this makes up the network, which is the subset of roadways that you've selected. And then when looking at how to measure congestion, through research, we really found that you have to look at several aspects. And we identified 4 as the most important, or the most representative that other case studies have used. The first one is percentage of time spent congested. And after iterating on all of these, we decided that 50% of the time or more was going to be our metric. The next is hours of delay per mile. And so after looking at what the data looked like, we found 12 minutes to be the useful cutoff. And that's not 12 minutes added to your trip. That's 12 minutes to get through a single mile section. And there was one section, I believe a small section of I-4 that actually reached 42 minutes to get through a single mile. And that's about less than 2 miles an hour to go through that entire section there. And then you want to look at reliability, and that's that planning time index. So can you predict how long it's going to take you to get through that roadway? And we looked at roadways that were at least 2 times slower to get through as compared to their free flow state, up to the high end was 5 times more than the free flow state. And we identified of that 1,000 miles we're looking at, 169 miles of congestion hotspot, which are all those red lines. We also looked at safety. This is mostly signal 4 data, and we looked at a few different things. Some other case studies have done just fatality and serious injury crashes. We decided to use the weighted KABCO system, which also includes property damage and minor injuries as well. It weights them, so fatality and serious injury are considered much more important. And we looked at the segments, which are those orange lines, and then you see the gray dots. FDOT also keeps a separate intersection only list for some of these hotspots. And so we were able to also identify intersections. We identified 137 miles of safety hotspots. And you can see that generally the intersections are alongside roadways that have congestion or have safety issues, excuse me. But you do see a few like out to the east of the county, south of Plant City. There are 2 that seem to kind of be floating out in space. That could potentially indicate that the intersections are congested, and then if they're not dealt with, and if population's increasing over there, that you could start to see some of those long orange lines forming in the data here over time if nothing is done there. And also a couple with South County that are disconnected as well. And while not a major part of this report, we did also want to take a look at resiliency to see if it showed us anything. And really no surprises here. We ended up, again, looking at a few different iterations of how to measure this, what exact cutoff. We ended up doing the storm surge 1 foot, sea level rise 1 foot in the 500-year floodplain. And we identified 113 miles of resiliency hotspots. And as you might expect, they're the ones right along the water, right along Tampa Bay, and along the Hillsborough and Alpine rivers. So if we take the crash mitigation and the congestion management sides and put them together on the map, you get this, which is our hotspots map. So this is anything that is either a mobility, aka congestion hotspot, those are blue, or the safety hotspots, which are in orange. And so, as you might expect, the majority of I-75, 275, and I-4 do show up as fairly continuous segments that have some sort of issue along them, as well as the majority of Hillsborough Ave, Dale Mabry, Nebraska Ave, and various roads around USF. And several South County roadways, including intersections with Lithia Pinecrest. Lithia Pinecrest has been a point of discussion recently. So we saw that while Lithia Pinecrest itself does not really light up, a lot of the intersections with other roadways like Bloomingdale Ave absolutely do. So it's really the intersection points there. So this is one major takeaway. And then we also wanted to look at kind of these unique circumstances. So generally, we know the worst crashes, the most damaging crashes, fatalities and serious injuries, they happen at high speeds. And so when you have congestion, you generally can't go fast. So you think you see one hump over here that's all the congestion, and then another hump over there that's all the safety. Generally speaking, yes, but go back, you can see they mostly disappear. A lot of the roadways get off this map, but these are the areas where you're getting both. There's both a lot of congestion and a lot of safety issues. And so generally you start to see segments, but the longest continuous segments were Hillsborough Ave, I-275, and Dale Mabry that had long roadways that were problem areas here, hotspots in our terminology. And other areas of note are US 301 and Bloomingdale Ave, as I alluded to earlier. And to reiterate, the intersections and not the entire roadways are often the problem, that the congestion and safety issues are kind of radiating out from the intersection points is what we started to see. So now with this, we have hotspots. We have an idea of where the problem areas are. So this is a list, and I'm not going to stay on this too long. It's probably hard for some of you to read as well, but this is an unranked list. The purpose of this was not to rank number 1 priority, number 2, and so on. It's just a list of things that popped up, segments that popped up. So I-75, the Sullivan Expressway, Kennedy Boulevard, I-4, probably some likely characters you're expecting here. And of course, our local governments are aware of this and they are programming projects. So we looked at FDOT's work plan, we looked at the city of Tampa and Hillsborough County's CIPs, we looked at the TPO's TIP, and we took all of those projects, put them on the map, and that's the one on the left there, you can see a spatter of projects, and then overlaid them with the identified hotspots that we just identified. So the areas in black, and there's one correction on this map, but the areas in black are the sections of the CMCP hotspots that do have some sort of project, at least something already programmed to like address some of the issues there. The red areas do not. But one I do want to point out is the Selman Expressway in South County to go towards Gandy. Via did inform us after we looked at this, because we're mostly looking at what was publicly available for big files and projects, that they are working on a congestion management process there, putting some serious money on it. So some of the gaps that we wanted to point out, and I think this is probably the biggest takeaway of this short presentation here. The areas in red are areas we've identified as hotspots based on the criteria that we talked about, but that do not have projects on them. So some that I wanted to call out were parts of Hillsborough Ave and Dale Mabry. I did mention some Expressway, obviously slightly addressed. Kennedy Ave, Bloomingdale Ave, and several parts of Ybor all really stood out, excuse me, as hotspots and did not have projects at least publicly available. There's something behind the scenes we were not aware of. And then from there, we have problem areas. We've identified what is not currently being worked on. Then we go to our strategies toolbox, which is a part of it. And this is many, many pages of the report. And so I just wanted to pull out one as a representative example. We have this organized into like 5 sections called tiers. And so the first is strategies to preserve the system, then to reduce person trips and vehicle miles traveled, then to shift automobile trips to other modes, then to improve roadway operations, and then finally to add capacity if necessary. And this is just an example of an ITS and operations strategy of traffic signal coordination and modernization. So you have a description of what that means, what it does to crash and congestion impacts, what is the scale, what are the costs, and what is the time frame. And for all of them, the entire mindset behind this was things that could be done quickly and cheaply. So we don't want a 30-year project that's going to cost hundreds of millions. We're looking for this exercise, something that can be done in 1 to 5 years and costs relatively, well, significantly less than that, certainly. And so the purpose of this is not to be, it's almost a perfect opposite or a complement to the tip that of course is fresh on everyone's mind. This is not meant to generate projects specifically, or the projects will never be living in CMCNP. This is meant to be a tool for citizens, for elected officials, for staffs to take a look at, and this will be available on our website. We'll have a web map with all of this. We'll have all the strategies so that it can be useful to inform project development. So you can look at where are the problem areas in my community? What are some strategies? And so anyone from someone who's really expert in the field to maybe a layperson can also look at this and get educated and try to talk about suggesting some projects. But this document does not specifically suggest that. We did, however, want to just do a very, very high level case study. So this is essentially the level that we looked at. We identified Hillsborough Avenue in just a specific section between 56th Street and Dale Mabry, and identified some potential strategies to address the issues there. Might be some smart technology, signal timing and coordination, and safer pedestrian crossings. And it was interesting to us too. We did this kind of in a vacuum as the project team, and then as we were concluding, as I was making this presentation, we heard from FDOT that they actually selected this segment as well as a little bit further east to do phase 2 of their smart corridor. They're going to actually start installing some smart technologies along this. So it's good to see that we're kind of thinking in similar ways as we're looking at this data. And then with that, I just want to leave you with, as I said before, we're going to continue to update this. Everything's publicly available data. We're hoping to continually update it, so it should get more useful as time goes on. And I leave you with the requested action to recommend the TPO board accept the CMCP update, and I will take any questions you have.
All right, questions and comments to the left. Dana?
This is a good study, I think. I thought it was very clearly explained, and your methods seem solid. It brings up other types of analysis I feel like could be done, like who of the hotspots, like who owns those roadways? What do they have in common? What types of projects that we've invested in have caused a change over time, and like what length of time does it take to see changes from certain types of treatments, like those kinds of analyses. Impact on crashes, like our crash, this is the kind of thing we are looking for with the things like the safety measures report. I can't remember the name of these things, but like when we're saying, oh yeah, we expect 150 people to die this year, like sure. Anyways, but I just want to make that comment, but my question is on the slide about safety hotspots, it said like segments and something, but what are the measures that go into looking at whether or not, like, is it the number of crashes? What is the?
Yeah, so it's, again, I don't know if everyone's familiar, it's the KABCO system, where K is fatality, and then it's A is serious injury, potential serious injury, minor injury, and then O is property damage only. I believe I have that correct. And so it's weighted where a fatality is, worth, obviously it's kind of strange to talk about it like that, but it's like maybe 125 times as bad as just a property damage only. So it includes property damage crashes and injurious and fatal crashes, but it weights it significantly towards caring about fatality and serious injury. Interesting, if that answers your question. And also, just to your first point, that is something that we didn't show here, but in the data, we're going to have like the ownership and also probably break it out by the municipality and talk about hotspots by municipality. So that is absolutely a great next step.
Jamie?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree. This is an awesome study, actually, and well presented. The first thing, I've gotten kind of into the study of like flock cameras and speed cameras. And are you saying that Hillsborough is expected to get flock cameras or speed cameras? Is that the safety upgrades?
I'm not saying that specifically. No, and again, I'm not the project manager on this, but I was saying specifically, it's phase 2 of the smart corridor study from FDOT. They've been the project managers, Amber Broussard, and don't quote me on that part. That they did a previous phase in, I believe included in 2024 or so. So that you can actually find online. We're happy to send it to you after this. So I don't know if flock cameras are specifically included, and I think it's more like traffic signal timing and things like that, but I'm not certain. So.
Awesome. I appreciate that. I'll look into it. And then the other question, one of the strategies was preserve the system. Can you just explain that part for me?
Yeah, so generally, again, there's a lot here, but preserve the system is basically just keep up with maintenance, make sure that the roadways and everything that exists right now, signals that we have, ASTARs, that everything is in good working order. So once things start to fail, that's the most critical thing before you put new things in. Yeah.
But it's not the idea that you're recommending not to decrease the number of lanes or, completely change the system or in it.
Yeah, no, it's more just another word for like maintenance, good maintenance. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else here to my left? To the right. Costello.
So I have a question about tiers. When you talk about tier 5 and adding capacity, this is always a tricky one because when you're adding capacity, that can also be for transit. So why did you divide adding capacity like on that tier 5 to tier 3, which was looking at, I think, like alternatives to driving?
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I see what you're saying there. And yeah, transit does come up in several places across all of the tiers. It is obviously mostly in tier 3. I think we were trying to distinguish it because the purpose of this with the time frame, like I was saying, of doing things that are to be done in 1 to 5 years and for small budget, that kind of by definition will exclude most of these, adding lanes or the big capacity projects that we're thinking of. We just felt like it would be remiss if we did not at least mention that that is a treatment that can be provided. And so we just put that at the very bottom of if you really exhausted everything else. So we separated it from transit, but we do mention in these little box descriptions that transit, of course, does pull people off the road, it reduces congestion, increases safety.
All right, and then my other question is, I don't know, this might be a little detailed, but did you notice any changes in crashes around the downtown interchange since a period of looking back from 2000 to present?
So that also an excellent question. So for the safety data, we were just looking at from 2021 to now. So about a 5-year period is the data that we pulled. We do have that. And so this is kind of why I'm talking about it as very open and valuable is now that we have this, we can start going back and maybe doing a historical look. And then as we're going every year, we can look and say, hey, what's been changing alongside what projects have actually been implemented? So I'm saying not right now, but that's something that's not in mind.
Right, and then in terms of ranking, like loss of time on driving versus crashes, is there like any quality of life? Like
yeah.
boosts, like do people want to have less time on the road but are okay to accept higher crashes? Like, was there anything?
We certainly did not.
Okay.
I mean, we've looked at everything, what impacts that the different treatments can have, but we're not saying like, oh, you can accept this many more fatal crashes every year. Save 2 minutes. Like, no, we're not gonna. Okay. There's no recommendation in that realm at all. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you.
From your data, are you able to find out where the majority of crashes were on highways, 275, 75, I-4? We know that that they're the arteries. There's where traffic is supposed to move. Were the crashes because of high speed, like you said earlier, or were they closer to the on-off ramps?
That is a very good question. And
I mean, do you have it available? If you don't have it available, that's fine.
that data exists and it's by location and by type. I don't have that specifically off the top of my head because you're mostly looking at general segments, but that data does exist. That's a signal 4 data that has that. So that's.
And
yeah.
your list of high crash areas, at the top of that list was a portion of 75 that we just spent billions of dollars of redoing.
Yes.
Big Ben.
Yes.
Has anything improved from that billions of dollars that we've spent?
Well, again, like to.
In your data.
Question. In the data too, we're looking at it kind of as a whole, just trying to identify where the hotspots are. And then in the future, we're gonna start looking at time series a little bit more, but we don't have that right now. Here's what's been getting better. We're not looking at trend. We're just kind of doing snapshot, right?
Thank you. I appreciate you and your efforts. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Joe, I can tell you it's gotten worse.
Yeah, all the people I know.
That was a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments in the room? Anything online?
Anyone online?
I guess, well, first of all, good on you. You are finishing up before, according to the agenda, you were even supposed to start. So you're good. Appreciate that. So I'm not gonna screw up your timeline. I do have a couple of real quick questions. Really just throw out a couple of buzz phrases. 1, induced demand, and 2, speeding. Let me take them in reverse order. I live within earshot of Interstate 275 near the Malfunction Junction interchange. I routinely hear cars, motorcycles, and any other possible thing that people can move with going anywhere between 100 and 120 miles an hour by sound on this roadway that Florida Department of Transportation has built for them. And during times of the evening when you could play tennis out there because there's very little traffic, they're using it as a speedway. Now, does that, and I'm just picking on 275 and I-4 now. I think Hillsborough Avenue and Dale Mabry and there are other corridors that are just as bad. The bridges for sure. Howard Franklin, the Gandy. So does that speeding issue, which I don't think is unique to Tampa, but certainly a problem here, does that figure into this somewhere?
So it does. We've looked at the data. We have it by the PM and AM peak period, midday. We have the breakout by time period. And that was one of the things that we iterated on as a project team. What should we be looking for here? And so for safety, we're looking at everything at any time of day. For the congestion, you're mostly looking at the peak period during the day. So the safety, if there's a crash that happened, it is included in this, and it happened in the last since January 2021. And we can look at that. That data exists and you can go into it and see they were going at this speed. It was a speed related crash. It happened at 3 a.m, that sort of thing. And I think the trend you're saying is absolutely correct, that speeds do increase pretty significantly, and thus the safety instances also increase.
Well, is there mitigative action that's being contemplated to address it? Because it's certainly not coming from law enforcement, by my limited experience. They're out there playing around all night and I don't see any police action at all. So how does that play out?
Sarah,
Can speak to this in just one particular case study.
Okay.
So for the city of Temple Terrace, we did actually do an analysis and report on speed and on matters related to this and where there are higher speeds happening. And we actually worked with the city of Temple Terrace Police Department and have provided and worked with them on that data. So in that particular case in Temple Terrace, we have been working with their law enforcement on where they're seeing areas of speeding. Can't speak for the rest of the jurisdictions, but for Temple Terrace, we have done that particular report, working with them very closely.
Well, maybe I beat that horse as much as I can. The other is induced demand. Just peeling off of what Chris said about your capacity increases. Anything in the study that addresses capacity increases and then the induced demand and what you're left with?
I believe that is mentioned in at that last tier. There are some sections about you need to add capacity. There's a bunch of bullet points and everything about the opportunities and risks. What are the other impacts that can happen from it? So it is mentioned as part of that. It's not something that's deeply dwelt on and explored of discussing the induced demand, but I foresee your point.
I'll just make the suggestion. I don't think enough people understand what induced demand is. I don't think there are enough people that are in places that are making decisions that understand what induced demand is. The more of that can be exposed for them, the better. They need to be educated, and this would seem to be a good place to start. You people come on the TPO board all the time. They come on the county commission. They come on city council. You mentioned induced demand to them and they look at you like you're a Martian. They need to get educated. And this is a great place. Good stuff, but I just think there's some opportunities there from an education perspective. So anyway, thank you. Ask slide back up.
Yes, of course.
All right, requested action, recommend that the TPO board accept the CMCMP update. Is there an enabling motion? Okay, motion from Aya Yassin. Is there a second? And Susie Watts. Not to be outdone. All right.
I just want to keep it.
I know, you got your second. All right, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Any discussion online?
Anyone online? No.
All right, by acclamation then, all in favor of the motion, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? All right, you two are unanimous.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, then, that concludes our action items, and now we're moving into status reports. Lauren Brooks. You actually gonna talk to us this time?
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Lauren Brooks, HDR. I didn't know if Elizabeth Watkins wanted to introduce the project, so I was just checking in. Okay, here we go. All right, well, thank you, everyone. Again, Lauren Brooks with HDR. I am the project manager for this particular assignment for the TPO. The TPO performs this type of assessment every 2 years. I know everybody's getting tired, so I'll try to keep it really quick. This, Dana, to your point, this particular analysis actually does assess trends. So that's what we're looking at. We're seeing how well we're, how well the system is performing based on the improvements. So looking at the trends and really trying to understand through our analysis how well we're meeting that transportation vision as laid out through the long-range transportation plan. We did collaborate with the CMCMP team, so you will see some overlap. But again, what we focused on was more of the storytelling aspect.
So you'll see some overlap in data, and they were gracious enough to help us out. But we also looked at different data, so just keep that in mind. But why is this study important? Again, transportation system performance touches all aspects of our daily routines, our daily lives. Again, the purpose of the state of the system is to monitor our progress in improving our system, and of course, still identifying outstanding transportation system needs. So Elizabeth presented on this particular study back in February, so we're just providing a quick update. The purpose of our assignment is to develop a report, but then also a companion online tool, which is going to be a story map. So if anybody's familiar with that, it will kind of showcase the data in a cool interactive way where you can click things on and off. So we'll have maps, we'll have graphs, various graphics, and of course, tell the story of how we're doing with our improvements. So we organized this report and the dashboard, or this online tool, looking at those components that reflect the composition of Hillsborough County. So those factors that provide context, such as demographics, land use, and then obviously we looked at our transportation network, and we organized that based on the LRTP project program categories, such as smart cities, Vision Zero, those things that you're used to seeing. So the presentation is just to provide you with a quick snapshot of some of the cool facts that we've gathered so far. So starting with the county profile and the demographics, you can see that Hillsborough County kind of falls in the middle in comparison to the Suncoast region, which consists of 8 counties. And then also for the housing units with no vehicle available, comparing Hillsborough County to the region and the state, we are the 3rd highest in terms of having housing units with no vehicle available. We were able to gather residential and non-residential building permits over the last 5 years. So you can see Hillsborough County is exploding in terms of development, but you can see that there's obviously clusters of development, and it makes sense. A lot of that is occurring within the cities of Tampa. So obviously, the cities of Hillsborough County, such as Tampa and Plant City, but you can see there's a tremendous amount of development also occurring within South County. So we'll start diving into some of the facts of the transportation system. So again, I know the CMCMP team, Harry, presented on the planning time index. So we took it a step further, specifically looking at FDOT roads, this particular roadway network. A PTI, or the planning time index, the value, if the roadway has a value higher than 1.5, it means less reliable travel conditions or less reliable arrival time. So you could see that 61% of FDOT roads actually have a value higher than 1.5. So it's those roads shown in red and orange on the map, if you can see that. So the CMCMP team also did a resilience hotspot looking at these particular conditions of, storm surge equal to 1 foot, sea level rise equal to 1 foot, and then looking at the 500-year floodplain. So we used that and compared their resilience hotspot network to evacuation routes. And you can see that 9% of evacuation routes, or 57 miles, to say the least, they will be inundated by these particular conditions. Looking at the crash hotspots for a 5-year time frame, you could see that the concentration of hotspots occurs along I-275 in North Hillsborough County, and then those roadways that provide access to and from I-275, such as Fletcher, all the way down to Hillsborough Avenue. And that's where, of course, the clusters of hotspot intersections also occur. We then looked at the bicycle pedestrian crashes for that same 5-year time frame. Obviously, there's concentrations of these particular crashes within the cities, which makes sense. There's more density and a lot of folks are, walking and biking more, but there were some surprises, I guess, to say the least, in South County. There's clusters occurring along State Road 674, US 301, Bloomingdale Avenue, and Brandon Boulevard. We also looked at HART's active bus fleet. So over half of HART's active bus fleet, which also includes those contingency vehicles, they're actually operating past their service life. So that was kind of a staggering statistic that we learned. Then moving on to kind of the major hubs of our area, we looked at all the airports, but tonight I'm just featuring some of the facts that we gathered from Tampa International Airport. And we did receive a note from the TAC. We are going to look at years prior to COVID to kind of better gauge how well the area recovered after COVID. So maybe it'll provide a more accurate picture of true passenger and flight increases. So, but this is just, again, the snapshot between 2020 and 2025. So this graphic will be amended to include years prior to COVID. And then same with the Port Tampa Bay. Again, you can see we had a staggering increase in cruise passenger growth. This, if you guys can see my mouse, but 227%. But again, to better gauge the true increase, we will look at 2018 and 2019 data. So that is what I have. These are the next steps. Again, we're wrapping up everything. We'll finalize it by the end of the month. Then we're going to hand over all of our information to the Hillsborough TPO, who will build the actual story map. And then we're excited to launch it in the fall. So are there any questions?
At least one. Map sync.
Thank you, Chair. Really quick question. I think it was on your first slide. It said quality of life.
Sure.
My question is for whom?
I mean, citizens of Hillsborough County.
I'm not, I swear I'm not being smart. And by what matrix is quality of life?
I mean, this was just a general term. We didn't define it specifically. It was just more of in general. And this, again, this is multimodal. It's we looked at, or we're assessing the performance of the multimodal transportation network.
Okay, correct. Okay, awesome. My other question is, I really like your growth cluster chart. I also believe that our system is subsidizing areas outside of our county line. So I kind of believe that Hillsborough County is subsidizing lifestyles of those in Pasco. If you look at but we can't see outside of that line, and we don't live in a vacuum, right? So our systems support not only Hillsborough County, they support others. So it might be an interesting slide to see where that cluster goes just outside of the lines to see how much of lifestyle we're subsidizing for Manatee or let's say Pasco, who are using our systems and putting a strain on them. So I'd like to kind of be interesting to figure out like who's using it in, who's using it out. And that also kind of ties back into my first question, which was quality of life for whom? Because if we're expanding highways in downtown Tampa for the citizens of Pasco County, are we achieving our goal as a board? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to tie those together in a way that makes sense. And that's what my curiosity led me to.
No, understood. We can easily include kind of maybe with the location, the LEHD information, and we can include something that shows, the inflow.
Yeah.
Inflow, outflow.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
No, that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Mr. Citro, did I see your?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Brooks, thank you very much. As you've heard, most of what has been told us this evening has to do with roads.
Yes.
And I'm not a pessimist. My glass is neither half full nor half empty. It has water, and I'm always gonna be able to take a drink out of it. However, everything that we have heard tonight, at some point, building more roads, improving the roads we have is not going to get us anywhere. Do the traffic engineers that you know, the data collectors, at any point do you guys just throw up your hands and say, we can't do this anymore. We have to start thinking more about public mass transportation. As Matt said, and I hate to be redundant, population of Tampa doubles every day. People come into this city for employment, for the arts, for the sports, for the cruise ships, for the cargo. And it's not the people of Tampa that are getting the use from these roads. It's the people from Pinellas, Polk, Pasco, Hernando, Manatee, Sarasota, and Highlands that are coming into the city of Tampa. And the people that are being affected are the people that are living next to the highways. Do you guys, and thank you all very much. But do you guys ever just say, the hell with it, I give up? We need public mass transportation in the form of commuter rail, streetcars, buses with their own dedicated lanes of service. And again, I thank you for all the data you've given us. And I thank everybody in this room for the data. But is there some time when you just want to scream like I do, or Dana does, or Rick does, or half the other people in this room?
You want to, I mean, I have.
Go ahead, you can give it to
No,
me.
we're probably gonna say that. Well, as it relates to the state of the system, this is just scratching the surface. We are like crunching so much data. We have so much more transit information that we want to show you. I feel your frustrations. I share them as well. We are constantly advocating for multimodals. We're trying to do that through telling the story of our needs of our transportation system as one method to advance those.
And one last thing, and I understand, but multimodal is not skateboards or bikes or e-bikes or multimodal is bus, train. Because bus, train is many people with one vehicle.
So on your point, I think what we're trying to do with this storytelling aspect is to show we still have lots of deficiencies that aren't being improved or, we're not making true progress towards our goal, so to speak, like towards the vision that we have for the area. So that's kind of the underlying storytelling piece of, hey, we're making great improvements, but there's still massive deficiencies in our network. And how can we do that? Well, we've got to kind of think outside the box, look at different options. It can't just be widen roads. So this doesn't actually recommend any specific projects, but it's to provide that backup information that will help educate folks on why it can't just be widen roads.
You've talked me off the ledge. Thank you.
Mine is quick.
Jamie,
Thank you, Chair.
you're next.
Can I recommend that you send this? Well, clearly we would like the storyboard to include something about development, South County, North County, and on the fringes of the county in general, right? Can you share this with our MPO, especially in the conversation about expanding urban service boundaries and things like that into the future? Did TPO have a stance, or did we have a stance in terms of transportation with expansion of the urban service boundary?
I can choose this one. So I think you're referring to the planning commission and the work that they're doing on the urban service area expansion and the direction that was received by the Board of County Commissioners to do that effort. So the TPO does staff provides transportation support to the planning commission. So we do work with them very closely, and we do have members of the planning commission staff serve on some of our committees, like our technical advisory committee has a planning commission staff on it. So we definitely can work very closely to share make sure that they haven't seen it, that they are seeing it. And I would add that a planning commissioner is sitting next to you and is getting that information right now.
Dana?
Well, I know Ed was next, but I.
Oh, yeah,
That
I'm sorry.
And just a
Yeah,
very,
go ahead.
very quick comment, on your resiliency, and this also applies to Harry, something that occurred to me is the 500-year floodplain. I mean, like, why isn't it the 50-year floodplain or the, I mean, a 500-year floodplain is way back there towards the ocean, where, and what we're experiencing is every 20 years, we're experiencing at least 100-year floodplain.
I mean, honestly, for Sharon, you might actually be able to, from a resilience standpoint, 500 years is actually the more common practice now because everything is already inundated at 100-year floodplain level. So we've got to look beyond that and see what else can be impacted. Right, Sharon? I mean, that's kind of the rule of thumb from a resilience standpoint.
When we're designing stuff, we're looking beyond what's going to be required and taking into consideration that FEMA mapping doesn't always situation.
Right, so it may seem 500-year, wow, that's so far out, but if you look at various models, 100-year is nothing. Everything's already inundated already. It's already being inundated from just rainfall. You know what I mean? So that's why 500-year is kind of the next level. Unfortunately, we're at that stage now. So.
Okay.
Dana?
3 questions, they're quick. The 60% buses past service life, does that include, you said something about, does that include the 24 buses that are in the queue? You said something
It
about.
includes the contingency buses. So if an active bus breaks down, the bus to replace that active bus, that's a contingency vehicle. It is also past its service life. So Hart's really, the fleet is in rough shape.
So it doesn't include buses that there's funding, they've been purchased and they're on the way.
That data was of April of this year. Right. So that big grant that they won for 30 more buses, that wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you.
The statistics on vehicle ownership is interesting to me because I wonder if that correlates to mode use. Like some people may choose to not have a car and that shouldn't be seen as a bad thing. Does the state of the system include mode use for different? Okay.
Yes, it'll be for commute patterns mode use, but we can look at the vehicle ownership. I think we started down that path. There may be like a privacy issue piece that I'll have to ask my technical team. Yeah, I think we tried to do it, but then it was gonna be a lot of headaches. So we're like, maybe for phase 2 or some other future phase.
And then third, land use. So thinking about, I think, Matt, maybe Joe, walkability also is part of the state of the system. And so with the land development code, they're recommending more mixed use codes, and hopefully that will have an impact. But is there an analysis of proximity of residential to there is? Okay, thank you.
Yes, sorry, because we're still kind of in development. I just showed what we already had that was easily available, but yes, we will have access to essential services, those types of things, like from a walking, biking, transit standpoint.
Okay, last question.
Okay, sorry.
Please, a question.
Thank you. It is a question. It's my understanding that concurrency for transportation money, the policy switched from having it go when it's developed to when we're getting certificate of occupancy for properties. And that was done years back, from my understanding. And this report is kind of showing how trends change. Is there a thing to look at concurrency for transportation dollars? Because I know like Big Ben's my example that I'm thinking of right now of how concurrency went away and then now we are playing catch up because we're waiting for COs opposed to getting the money when the development is done. And what that impact on the system really is because it's money not coming in and how that compares to counties like Pasco who have concurrency.
Right. No, that's an awesome idea. I don't know. That might be like a future thing that we could include, but I wrote it down and we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
On that point, just a note that, our communities here have mobility fees, they don't have the current.
Right, right.
Right.
I was gonna say, there's some.
They don't have
language.
impact fees, they have mobility. fees.
Yeah, so I'm sorry.
It is accounting in this.
Right.
Okay, sorry, yes.
Okay, good discussion. Thank you very much. We need to bring it in for a landing now, but appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Okay, I think what's left on our agenda, we can wrap up and bring in pretty quick, right?
Bit of ones for you. So on the request about the potential merger of the Tampa Bay MPOs, there's a joint board of county commissions with Pasco Hills and Hillsborough Roundtable this Friday morning at the Sky Center at the airport, and this is on their agenda as an update. Your next
What, I'm sorry, what time is that?
it is at, I believe the meeting is at 9:30 at Sky Center 1. And you can look on any of those views to see websites that should be listed as a public meeting. It certainly is for Hillsborough County.
Thank you.
Is that live stream?
It is not. You must be there. Your next meeting is in August. We do take July off. I am hopeful that in August we'll have a discussion on the item after that, which is your vendor interest items. I know you have a long list growing, and I'd like to have a good conversation with you now that we've finished with UPWP this month. We're starting new projects, not really getting these ones to you that we're required to do. I'd like to talk about what this committee is interested in for the second half of the year. And that is all that I have. There's one addendum I do want to point out, sorry, for those interested in the urban expansion areas, there's a flyer in your agenda about an upcoming meeting on the high court.
Sarah, what's the tip hearing?
It is a week from today, June 10th at 6 p.m. The agenda was released for that earlier today. If you look on our website, if you look at the agenda, it has clear instructions about how to sign up for public comment.
Yeah, and I'd encourage you, if you've never been to one of these, and even if you have, to either come to the meeting or come virtually and watch the process. It's a public hearing. It's set up separate and apart from their regular business. And obviously, if there are any thoughts that you may have that generate from the discussion we had here today, tonight, it's your opportunity to come in and speak. I encourage it. That's it. That's all I got. Hope to see some of you there on Wednesday next. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, we're adjourned. Okay.
So on. Question.